Well, hi, everybody. A very pleasant and beautiful Thursday to you, wherever you might be. What a beautiful day here in East County. It's Steve Dolan along with Ramon Scott here on Dolan's Dugout. Now, Ramon, obviously, we want to talk a lot about the worst news possible for the Padres for what's happened with Fernando Tatis Jr. with his partially dislocated shoulder. Just a couple things before we get into Tatis. Of course, the bad is the Padres lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants. The worst, Tatis. The good news, maybe, this weekend the Padres play a 3-game series in Texas against the Rangers. That's where it all started last year. The Padres were 11-11 and had lost 5 straight. They went in, they won 2 games in Texas, 2 games against the Rangers here, and 3 games against Houston here. So they were 7-0 against the state of Texas. Last year it all started at Arlington. Hopefully that's where it starts again this year. But Ramon, before we get ahead of ourselves on that, we need to look back. Your thoughts on Fernando Tatis Jr. with his subluxation, of course, meaning he's got a partially dislocated left shoulder. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I guess we should say we should have saw it coming, and maybe we did. And I just might have – I don't want to say I misspoke when talking about Fernando's slow start to the season, his poor hitting at the plate, obviously his defense. And, I kind of said, well, here's a player that just – hasn't rounded into form yet. Well, that is true, but is never going to be able to round into form if he continues to nurse this injury. Hopefully 10 days to heal the tear, if you will kind of help him get along, but you're always going to have that hesitation in the back of your mind, Steve. We don't need a superstar shortstop laboring through a season hitting 258 with 25 errors. When we have capable major leaguers, we just have to make a go of it, especially the way the team had to shift players around. That will settle itself out, but Fernando's going to have to make a self-assessment of can he play the way that he wants to play, given the fact that he's going to be hesitant. If you've ever done anything in your life with an injury, much less play for professional sports, you always have that little hesitation in the back of your mind about stretching it just a little bit too far. And we know that Fernando's not a player that's used to restraining himself. That's been talked about how we need him to be less injury prone, which sometimes has been a result of his extra effort. Not that this injury is a result of that, but we know how his style of play is and how can he nurse this injury through a season. If he can come back, Steve, and hit 275, 278, go back to solid defense. Now, we know it's the other shoulder than the throwing shoulder, but remember the preseason injury we talked about? And, of course, a lot of people don't remember, but when he made that head-first slide that he really had just chalked up to an awkward slide, turns out that was a little bit of the problem with the shoulder as well. So it keeps coming back to the shoulder. We're not even, 10% into the season, not even close. So right now, Fernando's got to decide where he's at once he is ready to come back and be honest with himself, because I think ultimately it's his call.
Ramon, as you know, I'm not much of a Twitter guy. And the reason being, you get some silly comments on there. Like today, you got people saying, well, Jace Tingler's job is on the line. Yeah, he's 4-3 and Machado doesn't care. And I don't listen to Twitter. What I do pay attention to, though, is I do get The Athletic. Some of the comments on there about Tatis's injury, and this is just what people are saying. I'm not going to say whether this is my opinion, but some are saying, that last year Mike Clevenger was cleared for the playoffs. And they're saying, well, okay, the doctors have cleared Tatis to maybe come back in 10 days or a little after that. But is this another Clevenger thing? Because Clevenger was cleared to, pitch in the playoffs in the second series against the Dodgers, and he's not even pitching this year. I'm not saying that's why he's not pitching this year because of the inning or two against the Dodgers, but got to be careful with Tatis because medical people, it was interesting. Kevin Acey of the Union Tribune wrote an article right away. He interviewed Dr. David Chow, who used to be the Chargers team doctor, about what a subluxation is when Tatis had it. And Chow said Dr. Chow said it would probably mean surgery. But the Padres are saying it can't get any worse. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert, but again, what few people I know in the medical community, when they hear about what he's got, the partially dislocated shoulder, the subluxation, they say, not good. Oh, no. So I'm not so sure, about Tatis. Is he going to come back too quick? Is he going to hurt himself again? I don't know, because this is year one of a 14-year contract, and certainly him coming back means the Padres are going all in this year, which they should. Next year, they get Mike Clevenger back, and if they have a healthy Tatis next year, they really can go all in. But the question becomes, at what point is the risk-reward too much risk and not enough reward? We won't know until he comes back, because like you mentioned, the headfirst slide in spring training, that certainly didn't help. And remember, he came out of the game in spring training, too, when he fielded the ball in the hole at shortstop, came out holding his shoulders. So this is definitely something that's been there. Ramon, two things I think that he's going to have to change. Number one, the headfirst slide. I mean, that obviously has something to do with this. And number two, when he swings, a lot of times this left hand comes off the bat. And try that. I mean, we've all played baseball. I mean, if you're only swinging with one hand and you swing and miss, it certainly puts a lot of pressure on the shoulder. So again, not being a medical expert, but listening to what people are saying who know what they're talking about, I think, again, there's a lot of risk reward there, and he's got to play a little bit differently. He may not be quite the exciting player that he is now, but hopefully he'll be the talented player that he is now.
I just can't see Fernando changing his style, even to harbor this injury or make sure he doesn't let it happen again. He knows he doesn't want to experience that pain again. You could see when he was really hurting when he finally had to come out of the game after that swing. There was just no choice. So I think that's what the concern is with him, because we have capable major leaguers, even though they struggled a little bit in their different positions here. But when you have experienced players, here's the thing about having a super talented world-class shortstop. At that position, you don't expect a lot of offense. So when you have someone of Tatis Jr.'s capabilities, that elevates his importance on the team. So like I said, if it's something where it can't get worse and he can come through with, I don't want to say an average season. If a guy hits like 278 with 20 home runs for the shortstop position, which Fernando would expect to have greater statistics than that, even though he's still a young player, that almost could be a realistic season for someone who maybe wasn't having an all-star season or someone nursing a bum shoulder. So if he could come back and do that, I think he could be a big contributor and help this team continue to win and work around this situation. But if he can't do that, if he is, sub 250 and making errors because he's hesitating and things like that, then you've got to shelve him. Here's the thing. They say it's a 6-month injury. You know what? These athletes are great. Technology is great. Go under the knife now. You might make it back for the playoffs. It's a tough injury to overcome. We look at some of the injury. You talked about Clevenger, but you know what? He's a young man who would be really interested in rehabbing himself as quickly and safely as possible, maybe by the postseason. That's just a thought, but that ship has almost sailed. You kind of wonder why this situation wasn't taken care of prior to the season.
Exactly. And Ramon, one good thing about the Padres is that they have a lot more depth than ever now. I mean, in seasons past, even last year, his backup at shortstop was Greg Garcia out of Valhalla High School. Greg, outstanding player, outstanding utility man and all, but, Greg's not, shortstop's not his best position necessarily. But when you look at the roster now, right now they have Ha-Sung Kim playing shortstop, which is where he played in the Korean League. Jake Cronenworth, the second baseman, was a shortstop before he came over from Tampa Bay. You've also got Jurickson Profar came up as a shortstop. And also you have Jorge Mateo. He's a shortstop. So you got plenty of guys who can play shortstop that are legitimate shortstops. But the problem is none of them are Fernando Tatis Jr., and that's what the Padres need right now, is because, Tatis is really what makes the team go. You think about in 2019, the last 2 months of the season when he was out, the team just the spark was gone. Although that team certainly didn't have nearly the talent this team does. So I think, the Padres are going to have to learn about life without Tatis. Because, again, if he does come back, I know it's a cliche, but will he finish the season if he comes back? 50-50. And, again, you've got him for 14 years. So do you go all out in year one, or do you get it fixed now? we'll see. I'm not the doctor, but we'll see what they do.
Yeah, well, Kim looks like he'll be just fine there. I think we see that his hitting is going to be okay. And okay, made an error. That's okay. The team isn't looking good defensively at all. You mentioned, Steve, we've got shortstops in the outfield, basically, and that's also leading to some of the problems that the team is having. I mean, even as good of a job as they've done, this has kind of been the Padres' approach since they've kind of started shuffling the roster in preparation for this season over the last couple of years. It seems like we have capable outfielders, but yet we end up with utility type defensive players. Not that they're not starters offensively, but kind of to get their bats in the lineup. Sometimes the Padres have resorted to trying to make outfielders out of guys. It's worked. It hasn't worked. So this is just piecemeal at this point. We're waiting for Grisham to come back. We've talked about that. But right now, that was the difference. That was the difference in the game yesterday with the Giants and possibly in losing that series to the Giants.
Yes, Ramon, as you know, I do the statistics for Bally Sports San Diego, and I've got notes all over my score sheet from yesterday. But anyway, just a couple things with the Padres. They have made 8 errors in 7 games. They do lead the major leagues in errors. Also, offensively, they only scored 7 runs against the Giants in 3 games. Not good at all. Yesterday's game, you had errors, of course, by Manny Machado and by Kim at shortstop. 2 others that weren't errors. Mateo on the home run in center field, it hit, on the heel of his glove. So, if he didn't touch that, it's probably a double instead of a home run. I think he knocked over the fence. And also in the 10th inning with a runner on third, ground ball down the first baseline, pitcher Tim Hill let it, it was a fair ball, and he could have picked it up and tagged the runner, Yastrzemski, out. Although the issue being, I kind of defend Hill because the ball had some spin on it too, so I'm not so sure, what you do on that play. It's darned if you do, darned if you don't. Speaking of Tim Hill, not just him, but especially that back in the bullpen we talked so much about with Keone Kella, and you got Drew Pomeranz, Emilio Pagan, and the closer Mark Melancon. Their ERA right now, 1.09 through the first week. So the bullpen's doing great. Hey, one other note on yesterday's game. It's funny. I wanted to ask your opinion about runners starting on second base because I'm hearing so many Padre fans now about, they started a runner on second base. I hate that extra inning rule. It's terrible. Well, last year we didn't think that extra inning rule was so terrible because last year the Padres had 4 extra inning games. They won all 4 and they never even trailed an extra inning. So I'm all for the rule, not because the Padres were 4-0 last year, but it ends these games in 10, 11 innings instead of 17 or 18 sometime.
Can't have that anymore. We can't go 17 or 18 innings. I don't know why. I loved it when we were kids. We'd stay all night, right? We wanted that game to last 1 in the morning, and we told our parents we didn't even want to turn off the TV or didn't want to leave the game. But nowadays, got to get these games over with. I watched one of the games the other day, Red Sox. I think it was Red Sox Orioles. One of the American League games, and they were starting the runner and still win 12 innings. So you can have some great pitching and things like that. You just don't want these games to drag on, and now it affects the roster so much in the back end, and such an important how important the bullpens are becoming. And I think that's great that the Padres bullpen. I think we've said it. We're on this bullpen bandwagon because they have the numbers. When you have as many major league quality arms in the bullpen, that's really all you need to get it done. You can't throw out clunkers out there, and every guy the Padres are throwing out there pretty much, has experience and knows how to get guys out. And that's really what's going to help them through some of this situation, especially playing against some of the clubs they're up against coming up. That's where games are won and lost will be in that bullpen. So I tell you, when you talk about that ball, Steve, that went off of Mateo's glove, and he was in play. Everybody talked about it, how the ball probably would have stayed in play, and his momentum kind of eased the ball over. A lot of major league center fielders actually probably would make that play. And, Blake Snell's kind of guys, when he played in Tampa, that ball always got caught for years. They've had great center fielders. Tampa, so he's expecting that ball to be caught. It was well struck by a good hitter, but those are plays that have to be made and makes the difference in a game like that as well.
Of course, like you mentioned, in Tampa Bay, he had Kevin Kiermaier out in center field, who we saw Blake Snell and Kevin Kiermaier and all the Tampa Bay Rays here for the first 2 weeks in October last year. Because remember, the American League playoffs were at Petco Park, and Blake Snell and the Tampa Bay Rays did win the American League Championship right here at Petco Park. Blake Snell's been good so far. Yesterday were the first 2 runs he's given up all year. And by all year, I mean spring training too, So he didn't give up any runs in spring training. The only thing about Blake Snell, he throws a lot of pitches. He threw 87 pitches in 5 innings yesterday. He has a tendency to throw a lot of pitches, which is why he doesn't go deep in the games. And, so be it. I mean, it's something, I don't know how you prevent that other than, throw more first pitch strikes or whatever the case might be. But Ramon, I don't think the pitching hasn't been the problem at all so far. The problem, like we said, 7 runs in 3 games against the Giants. There are 2 guys offensively, though, who are doing pretty darn well. I mean, Will Myers and Eric Hosmer have both reached base in every game they've played. Same with Jake Cronenworth until yesterday. So they've done a lot. Hey, one note on Myers. This is interesting. This is kind of under the radar. Will Myers has now hit 57 home runs at Petco Park. And you ask, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is Adrian Gonzalez hit 57 home runs at Petco Park. Myers and Gonzalez are not tied for the all-time lead with home runs at Petco Park. So the next time Will Myers hits a home run at Petco Park, he's a king of Petco Park.
Well, I thought I saw Giancarlo Stanton hit 63 in one day, but I guess that doesn't – I don't know what it was. I think it was 57, whatever.
Oh. No, those don't count. Those weren't a real game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The depth in the lineup as well. I mean, this is what's going to keep this team going, and that's why the situation in the background with Fernando notwithstanding, the team's going to be fine. Once Grisham gets out there and you can solidify the defense, obviously that's been a problem, the defense. So that's what Tingler's been harping about, and I think we're all seeing it right now. And got to have a complete game out there when you're playing these division opponents. Sometimes you get away with it against some of these opponents coming up. Might be okay. Like I said, and I wouldn't worry about these. And you talked about the pitch counts with Snell and Darvish too, Steve. Both starts. Yeah. He did do a little better, I think, stretching it out and making the most of his pitches when he got in that 5th inning this last outing. But his count's been a concern. But I would instruct the pitchers to go ahead if they're not comfortable in a situation pitching to contact, to go ahead and go for strikeouts. I've got plenty of guys on the back end going to come in and take care of business. If my Cy Young candidates, both of them, and throw in Musgrove looked good as well, but just get it done for as many innings as you can. Don't worry about managing your stress level if that's a problem to you and you feel like you just need to rear back and get these guys out by throwing strikes. We can pick you up with the relievers.
Well, Ramona, I'm going to get my notes here now again. You mentioned Joe Musgrove out of Grossmont High School. Speaking of Joe is going to pitch the series opener of a 3-game series against the Rangers in Arlington, Texas, starting Friday night. He's going up against Kohei Arihara Friday night. Saturday night, we've got Chris Paddock's going for the Padres. Remember Jordan Lyles, who used to pitch for the Padres, who one time carried a no-hitter in the 8th inning. We thought, hey, maybe Jordan Lyles will be the first Padre to throw a no-hitter. He'll be pitching against the Padres on Saturday. And then Sunday, we have Adrian Morahong going against Mike Foltynewicz. Now, Foltynewicz, you wonder, where did I hear that name before? A couple years ago, he was outstanding in Atlanta. Last year, for whatever reason, he fell out of favor, so we'll see what happens. But again, as I said earlier, Ramon, this is where the Padres turned it around last year. This is where it started. They beat the Rangers twice in Arlington. They beat the Rangers twice in San Diego. They beat the Astros 3 games in San Diego. The Padres are the state champions of Texas last year by going 7-0 against Rangers and Astros. So if it started in Arlington last year, maybe it could start in Arlington this year. And speaking of starting, I think Trent Grisham will be starting in center field tomorrow night. And so far, the Padres have been looking for a leadoff hitter. And, Trent Grisham is probably going to be their leadoff hitter. He's a left-handed batter, so maybe not so much against lefties. But having Grisham out there is going to make a difference. Because, again, Jorge Mateo, the play yesterday, I imagine Grisham makes that play or it's not a home run. But then again, things happen. You remember years and years ago, Jose Canseco once a ball went off his head over the fence for a home run. So those things do happen. As Dick Williams used to always use the term, it's unfortunate. But, Ramon, we'll see. Again, like you say, we got the times up there for this weekend's game. Padres, Rangers, this is the time where the Padres are going to make hay. And one more thing I want to get back to you. 3 games in Texas, then 4 games in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. Going into the season, The Pirates and Rangers were considered two of the four worst teams in Major League Baseball, of course, along with the Baltimore Orioles and the Colorado Rockies. So I can be honest with you, the Padres don't go at least 5-2 on this road trip. It'll be somewhat of a disappointment, not so much because 5-2 is a bad record, but they're playing two bad teams. So maybe it's time to make hay. What's your call? What do you think?
I think that'd be good. 5-2. I mean, obviously they underachieved in the homestand. I think that the Tatis news definitely threw the team off kilter a little bit when you shake things up like they had to do. So just having this day off, regrouping. If you mentioned Grisham, he'll have some pressure on him now. He definitely is not coming in to a situation. I think there is enough veteran presence that you can feel comfortable, but when now if you're expected to come in leading off, playing center field, it's going to be a little bit of pressure for him to stabilize the situation. He cannot come out cold out of the gate at all. We need that spot really to spark right now because of what's going on. So, there's plenty of offense there, and I think that these starters will get through. I'm really interested to see the matchup with Jordan Lyles. I thought that was kind of the best matchup of the Texas series coming up. I kind of fancy that one out of the 3-game set, but certainly every game, I think the Padres could be close to a favorite in every game, if not at least a pick 'em in maybe the Sunday matchup. We'll see how the first couple go and see there, but they're certainly not going to be a big underdog in any of the games in Pittsburgh either.
Well, Moni, that's a good point. Actually, I've been talking to my buddy Barry Compton, our MLB insider, who lives in Duncanville, Texas, right outside of Dallas. Barry told me a few things about the Rangers that we need to know. Remember, it starts at the top of the Rangers with their new general manager, Chris Young. And if you remember that name, yes, that is the same Chris Young who used to pitch for the Padres for several years, who was the last Padre pitcher to win a playoff game before they finally won a game in 2020 in the playoffs. Chris Young, you say baseball player, Ivy League graduate. Chris Young, very smart. I think the Rangers, they're going to be down for a while, but I think they're going to turn around under Chris Young. Couple players to look for the Rangers. Nate Lowe, remember that name with Tampa Bay last year? So far, he's been their leading power hitter, so watch for Nate Lowe. Also, of course, Joey Gallo's still there so far. Well, the Rangers trade him, and get a haul for him, their best power hitter. Don't know. Depends how their season goes. Another name, Kiner Falefa, has moved from third base to shortstop because Elvis Andrus, their longtime shortstop, was traded to the Oakland A's. And one other thing about the Rangers to remember, too, remember Rougned Odor, their second baseman who punched out Jose Bautista. The Rangers cut him. They owed him about $27 million. They cut him, and he's actually gone to the New York Yankees. So you won't be seeing Odor this weekend, but you will be seeing the Padres and the Rangers. And again, like you say, Ramon, maybe this is time for the Padres to make some hay.
Yeah, and one other guy, I don't know, always look forward to seeing Matt Bush.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're a fan or not, I think, he's worked hard to get to where he's at and to have the success that he's had. If you just wiped everything off the back end of his life and just looked at where he is in his career, look, we all expected great and big things, obviously, but you know what? I'm just talking about his field presence now. He's worked his way into being a good reliever. Definitely had some big moments, some key moments in some good games over the last couple of years. It's taken a long time to get to this point. And, I'm not going to say anything negative or positive about anything that's happened there, but he'll be there. Probably going to get a chance to see him in action.
Well, Ramon, we talked earlier about the Padres. They've had a lot of 3-1, 3-2 low-scoring games. The Rangers are on the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, you remember on opening day, they lost to the Kansas City Royals 14-10. Now, just said this jokingly to my buddy Barry in Dallas, and it's 14-10. So you wondered, was it 14-7? And the Rangers pulled what the Matt LaFleur and the Packers pulled on 4th and 8 against Tampa Bay in the playoffs and just went for a field goal instead of a touchdown and lost 14-10. Jokingly, we don't know. But again, with the Rangers, they can hit. But one thing about the Rangers, they can't pitch very well. So if the Padres are going to start, breaking out those bats, this would be a good weekend to do so. Because again, they're not exactly going up against, the 63 Dodgers pitching staff.
Yeah, and we won't hopefully see the Rangers get into this situation, Steve. But guess who had saves on Tuesday and Wednesday? The closer, Ian Kennedy. So
Yeah.
a little bit of a throwback there as well. So always good to see the Rangers. But if they want to trade runs with the Padres, they're going to be in for a long weekend because we'll be able. I do not think there'll be regression from the bullpen. I think this is the real deal. I think these guys are the real deal. If there's anything happens down the road with injuries or innings falling by the wayside because of certain situations, that's something we can't predict. But right now, I think that what we've seen from the bullpen, nobody's going to go out and throw a 1 ERA all year. But I think that you're looking at one of the best bullpens in the league that's going to help carry us and keep us in contention with or without Fernando. But he's coming back. Like I said, it's his call, Steve. It's Fernando's call. I don't think that because of the fact that they say no further damage necessary, unless he looks like he's holding his arm down or something, it's going to be his call how long he can play before it pops out again. That'd be my prediction. Sorry.
Yeah, and Ramon, one thing about the Padres, too, we talk about their bullpen's been great so far. The bullpen's going to be tested because starting Friday night in Texas, the Padres play 17 games in 17 days. So my guess is that you'll see some up and downs with the bullpen. Pitchers will go down the alternate side. And, Pierce Johnson, who's been injured, I think he's going to be back at some point during the road trip because I don't think, the way Major League Baseball is now with pitchers going 5 innings in their starts, I think the Padres are going to need more than just the 9 guys they have in the bullpen now, that somehow, some way, somebody's going to have something happen where he's going to go the alternate side and Johnson's going to come up and maybe others will come up too. And also remember, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but after the 3 games in the 3 games in Texas and the 4 games in Pittsburgh, a week from Friday, the Dodgers come here for a 3-game weekend series, and I'm not going to sit here and dwell on that yet. I do know the Padres have arranged their pitching rotation where they will have Adrian Morejon on Friday, Yu Darvish on Saturday, and Blake Snell on Sunday, most likely against the Dodgers, which is just the way you want to line it up because you got 2 lefties with, of course, Morejon and Snell, and Darvish, who's, their ace. So they've got to line up for the Dodgers. But first, they got to take care of business in Texas. They got to take care of business in Pittsburgh and win those 2 series.
Yeah. Well, if you can replace, in this bullpen, some of the pitchers that they do have recovering, and of course we did send just 2 guys to Tommy John last month, 2 pitchers, but when you can bring guys like Pierce Johnson or Dan Altavilla, these are guys that are just part of the mix. They're just like the other guys. They're capable, they're veterans, and they can get out. So you're not necessarily, there'll be some, there might be some young pitchers coming in, but I think that you're dealing from a position of strength. So.
Yes, and of course, also down the road, Matt Strom will be coming back hopefully in the next month or so. But Ramon, speaking of coming back, you and I will be coming back Monday morning. Of course, at that time, we're going to review the Padres series in Texas, preview the series in Pittsburgh, and I'm sure come Monday we'll probably even talk a little bit more about that Dodgers series too.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, hopefully we'll have plenty of momentum going into that. This is the time to pounce right now and cast this series aside. I mean, the Giants are still the Giants. They're going to be aiming for all their division opponents. So hats off to them. They did the job. Like I said, Steve, Padres going up against hard throwing. Watch out on this one when Padres right now are facing hard throwing right-handers that are good, that are, look at Gausman. He's definitely an above average major leaguer, did a fine job in that game. So Padres up against hard throwing, good right-handers. Those are the games that they really have to have a good pitching matchup and play their best and be at their best, I think.
Agreed, Ramon, and want to thank you so much, Ramon Scott, for being with us this morning on Dolan's Dugout. I want to thank all of those who've been watching, and again, a reminder, we'll be back on Facebook Live Monday morning at 11. And thanks so much, everybody, and have a good day.
Go Pods!
Sorry.